Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
And over at Washington, we pre-planned for the pandemic by having no fans in the stadium for the last 2 or 3 years.
What kind of injury is that again?
Sounded like a cut of meat.
The inner loin area, if you will.
What's the matter, Bunky? Another season of losing everybody.
That was really interesting stuff there, Doc. But just to go back to what you said earlier, and to be very clear, under no circumstances am I going in a hot tub with either Jay or James.
Neil is already in mid-season form.
It's opening week of season 2020. Here we go.
That's how we start. Yeah, baby.
32 SuperFans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to the season opening edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey everybody, it's your old pal PodVader here. And we can't be more excited that the 2020 NFL season has finally arrived. If you've missed any of the shows that we've done over the past few months, we did 2 shows for you this week alone. You can go and check us out anywhere podcasts are heard: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, etc., etc., etc. The list gets longer and longer. I literally just submitted our show to the Amazon Music directory. So we're going to be there too. Anywhere you can get your podcast, you can get your football fix from Next Fan Up. And we will be here with you for sure every Thursday. Any other day of the week, that's up in the air. That's why you got to subscribe or follow on any of those directories, because you never know when you're going to get the next episode of Next Fan Up. I am joined here today by 2 super fans, and a little bit later we're going to introduce you to a special guest for our very first episode. But let me bring in the Thursday regulars. And I feel like there's been a changing of the guard here, and I feel like I got to go to Eagles fan James first on this Thursday show, because James, I mean, you've been putting in the work, man. You've been on most of these episodes.
Yeah, definitely needed something to grab onto in this chaotic year that pretty much gave no blanks about anyone's safety, well-being, or mental state of mind. So football pretty much grabbed me and never let go. So one thing I can lead on that pretty much won't disappoint me unless Washington is actually playing well. Then that's just disappointing all around for everybody.
Well, not disappointing. Well, Washington playing well would be a disappointment. Not disappointing would be hearing from our Washington football team fan from across the pond, live from Scotland. It's Neil. Hello, Neil.
Hey, guys. Although James has been on almost every single show, I still think I should be first name on this podcast because let's face it is quality over quantity.
That's something to consider for sure.
It's debatable.
Listen, there's going to be lots of ways that you can interact with us as a show. If this is your first time, welcome. If this is your second time, hey, how you doing? If this is your third time, your family. Why haven't you emailed me? I miss you. Send us emails, nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast. And we're on Facebook, facebook.com/NFU Podcast. Great ways to interact with us as a show. Other ways you can interact with us, you can join our Pigskin Pick'em group on ESPN.com. We're going to be going over all the picks today, so you can compete right there alongside us on ESPN.com. Just go to the Pigskin Pick'em game, search for Next Fan Up in the groups, and join. We're open. I don't think I'm even going to close it this year, so you can join at any time this year. You can also join our ESPN.com Eliminator group. We have links to both those in the show notes, or you can obviously go to ESPN.com, go to the game, search for Next Fan Up, and join. Shout out to JD, who is at SportsTLK365 on Twitter, for spreading the word. That was a nice extra bonus. So shout out to you, Jay. Thanks for spreading the word and letting people know about the Next Fan Up podcast and our Eliminator group and Pigskin Pick'em groups. I think that's enough of the business. I think it's time to get to our special guest who's been waiting ever so patiently. He is the co-host and creative director of Tailgate, Homegate Nation Radio. He's an award-winning gridiron chef. It is Jeff Dockeray, better known as Doc. Doc, how's it going?
Greetings, salutations to the entire Next Fan Up Nation. Good to be with you guys. I'm reminiscing here from the old days of Blog Talk Radio, where when I was going through a divorce, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night was basically a 1-800 free conference call of NFL fans, and brings me back to those days. So I'm elated to be on with you guys. I've been following the podcast for a while. Been talking to PodVader for a bit. Going to have him on my show on Dan Patrick Radio, and I love the banter. And ironically, the two guys that are on with us today, both James and Neil, you guys are my favorites. I have been exercising nightly to the Next Fan Up podcast, and sometimes I've had a heart rate of 120. I've had to stop and have one giggle. People think I'm losing my freaking mind when you guys banter back and forth. So it's I'm elated to be on with you guys.
I was hoping Neil was going to have something witty right off of that, but no, he was dumbfounded and shocked. Meanwhile, Monty and Nick and Rob are all like, "What do you mean they're your favorites?"
Monty's good during the draft, and Nick, you know, when the Chiefs are on, Nick can be a little bit high strung.
Yeah, we don't need any more of Nick. I mean, any more Chief stuff, and I'm going to just honestly.
Oh God.
Well, don't watch tonight's game then.
No, quite.
Oh, we all have to watch tonight's game. Tonight's game is what makes us sane. Watching the Celtics try and knock out the Raptors will make you insane. But
Yeah,
that's a different podcast.
I'm not sure if you're going to be bringing it up today or not, but one of the big things for me going into this first game tonight, and also for the weekend, is going to be home field advantage. This is surely, it must be a big topic over there. Does home field advantage exist anymore? Now you have no fans in the stadium. It was a big, huge thing over here. Going back to our earlier discussion about soccer, it's been a huge thing here for that, and I guess with you guys too.
Well, if you want to take a quick detour on that, it'll be a nice transition to some things I want to talk with Doc about. But I am curious about home field advantage. I think without fans in the stands, it's going to make a big difference. I know the teams apparently are going to be allowed to pump in fake crowd noise into the stadium, which is kind of ironic because teams were formally fined and punished for doing such things, unless you were the Peyton Manning Indianapolis Colts, but that's a different story. I'm curious to see, because I do think there are some matchups. There's one this week, as a matter of fact, in the Superdome that I think a crowd would make a much bigger difference than them not having a crowd. Doc, what do you think about home field advantage this season?
Well, for the last 5 years, I'll just say, let's get the Saints out of the way. There's a bit of a fallacy that the Saints have an incredible home field advantage. And if you take, as a matter of fact, there's something on one of the websites this week that got into that, expected points, etc. The Saints are 27-13 at home, 24-16 on the road. The last, 5 years. Juno, here's a key stat. The Saints at home are generally batting 30% against the spread, and they are over 70% on the road the last 4 years. Even though they've won 38 games the last 3 years, the home field is not an advantage for the Saints, and it will not be this week. I got a question for you, Pod. If we're going to allow fan noise in the stands, then I think it should only be right that for teams like the Jets, we should have the negative fans or be able to yell at the refs at the same time as part of the background noise. Because I swear to God to you, if you call any of the SuperFans in New York, which has no home field advantage, there's as much negative booing and yelling and you suck and get redrafted and all that. I just think that would be part of the backdrop that would make it real, other than just raising the decibel levels when the defense is on the field. What do you think?
I think so, and I think James, they should have drones over Philadelphia's stadium to drop batteries onto the field.
Okay, first of all, that happened before I was born. and secondly, we're more well known for throwing snowballs at Santa. That also happened before I was born. So I have nothing to do with either of those things. But I will say there are a few teams, two right now, and I'm trying to look this up. But if you go to the internet, you can Google which teams are allowing fans in the stands, whether for September or later on this season. I can tell you right now off the rip, starting with the AFC East, the Bills say that no fans are in the stands for the first two games of the season. The Dolphins are allowing fans upwards to 13,000 or 20% capacity. The Patriots will not have fans at regular season games through at least September. And the Jets, no fans in the stand until further notice.
I believe there are 5 teams that are so far approved to have fans in the stands. However, here in week 1, there'll be 0 fans allowed in any stadium, even if they are allowing fans for the season.
And over at Washington, we pre-planned for the pandemic by having no fans in the stadium for the last 2 or 3 years. So we're well prepared for this. What I would say, Jay, on a more serious point, is that over here in Europe, for when all the soccer leagues started again, initially there was a real surge towards away victories and home losses. That kind of evened itself out a little bit, and probably you'd have to say that the only real difference we saw was that the more talented team, regardless of whether we're playing at home or away, won more often. And that just kind of points to the fact that sometimes, like the Seahawks always say they've got the 12th man in the stadium, getting a bit of a boost from that was probably fair enough in terms of the soccer games. The more talented teams won, whether they were home or away. So we might see a bit more of that. And again, doesn't bode well for my team.
I do think that there is what you mentioned, sort of a natural emotional lift when you have a crowd of 50,000 plus people screaming in your favor. That just sort of gives you that little extra oomph out there on the field. I have to imagine that's the case. I mean, all that energy's got to go somewhere. Yeah. But at the same time, I think you're 100% right. I think the more talented teams will find a way to win on the road. Now, where I think there will be a home field advantage here is early in the season, where we had no games for the preseason. Teams that are going to be at home are already going to feel comfortable in that spot without fans in the stands, because that's where they've been practicing for the most part. So I do think that there is a slight home field advantage just here in the early part of the season that will end up, as you said, will probably go away as the season progresses and teams get used to traveling. The one thing we will 100% miss, though, is tailgating. And Doc, you are on the forefront of the transition from tailgating to homegating.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. Dead clock is right twice a day, I guess. I go back to 10 years ago. I was the head chef at the Pro Football Hall of Fame enshrinement. And as I'm cooking on stage, I got a chance to work with some Hall of Famers. It was very, very cool to cook for these Hall of Famers. But I wrote an article that was contracted to the NFL about the move home. And it was all, the genesis of that was the NFL really moved their female demographic up by 10 points. And you had the proliferation of fantasy, and daily fantasy and wagering, and the whole home engagement thing naturally happened. Of course, there was a big fight in Dallas. I was working with a sports fan coalition on seat licenses, the affordability of game day. That's another factor. So it was natural that homegating would become something. I own NFLHomegating.com, and I'm negotiating right now with current NFL people that invest in homegating. But I don't want to take anything away from tailgating, because there's nothing like a Sunday morning church in the parking lot, right? For us, and James, talk about the Eagles. Some of my most memorable tailgates in Buffalo where every couple of years, a whole group of women came up, Eagles fans, and they wanted my garlic soup, which is great in cold weather Buffalo. And I've got my most memorable game days in Buffalo, cooking in 20 below weather with a bunch of thick neck lug nuts blocking the flames so I could spoon a beef broth into a risotto, one of the 6 courses I'm cooking. And you've got those incredible memories. But, we've naturally moved home, Jay, where affordability and all the aforementioned things. So right now, of course, this year, we can talk about what's going to happen game 3, game 5, and when incrementally they're going to let fans in the stadium. But if we get a re-up of the virus, we still got the home consumer. Now, I will pivot to my conversation with Guy Fieri. Spent the afternoon with him when he was kind of at the peak of diners, drive-ins, and dives. And we had spent 30 years moving the pantry to the parking lot. I don't know if you guys have ever tailgated to the point at your own stadium, but this 6-course stuff and the ticket manifests and the planning that it takes to put on a tailgate for 50 to 60 people, it's a labor of love. But now we take all that interactivity, the gaming, the breaking bread, the traditions, the camaraderie, the brotherhood. Let's move it to the home consumer rather than having James, Neil, and Jay over with a box of Budweiser to watch the games in the Red Zone channel. Let's break bread together. Let's get gaming. Let's get the hot tubs out on the deck. Let's make sure we have a deck. And so there's so many elements now that have brought home gating into the mainstream, and it's very appropriate here to talk about it in 2020. So a lot of my show on Dan Patrick Radio is going to do exactly that. Everything around anything that's not on the field. How to break bread, how to decorate your home from curb to couch, gaming, fantasy, wagering, sharing courses, proteins, starches, everything. We've got 8 celebrities that are going to be aboard, teach you how to cook at home and really build up church at home on Sunday morning. That is why home gating is relevant here in 2020, and happy to do it. So
sweet. And cooking risotto in the Buffalo Bills parking lot. I didn't know those Neanderthals even knew what risotto was.
This is before wrestling entertainment joined my parking lot. Okay. As a matter of fact, the first table drop was long before it was called Bill's Mafia. Those guys, the one guy dressed up as Hulk Hogan. We had a corner lot outside the stadium lot, right? And we were right in the corner. We had an entire corner. I used to bring in portable pubs and we'd blow them up. A guy I knew down in New York, we'd erect a big pub in the corner. But I remember those days, and all of a sudden, after 6 Budweiser and a little liquid courage comes aboard, this dude with the Hulk Hogan had, all the garb on, he jumps off the bus under the table. First look good. I'm probably 4 or 6 drinks of Crown Royal deep into cooking. And we looked at this guy, thought he was a few fries short of a Happy Meal. And little do we know, 5 years later, it's the Bills Mafia. It's the number one thing associated with Buffalo Bills tailgating. So have at it and don't make the playoffs. I'm down in New Orleans now cooking jambalaya. So.
That was really interesting stuff there, Doc. But just to go back to what you said earlier, and to be very clear, under no circumstances am I going in a hot tub with either Jay or James.
Especially if you take a look at my game day menus, you're going to want to go in the hot tub before you eat. So,
yeah. What do you have cooked up here for kickoff? Doc, anything special?
Yeah, because I think it's going to be a bit of a circus because of the lack of everything here in this preseason, games and otherwise. I think we're going to be calling a lot of, I do dips. So there's usually a lot of dips in week 1. But I've got a beautiful smoked onion dip and how to smoke onions, cream cheese, some Worcestershire sauce. And that's kind of a great appetizer to serve with pitas or chips. But I'm going to give out one of my most requested protein recipes, and that is a fresh lemon, marinated thyme and black pepper pork tenderloin. You can marinate it Saturday night, wake up, cut that thing into medallions, add it to any starch, and you've got a 5-star protein for your game day. And those are the 2 recipes I'm going to release to you guys this week. And hopefully the next Fan Up Nation can give it a try and let us know what they think.
Thank you. I need that recipe. Because otherwise, I'm going to do a drive-by by your house and pick one of those up.
You had me at maple infused pork. That's it. Yeah, I'm down. I'm ready.
Well, I'll tell you a story around the pork. Okay, I was running.
Hold on, Doc, because maybe not because I kind of, when you were talking about that there, I was starting to get an erection. I must be honest. Another 2 minutes, you never know what's going to happen over here.
Neil is already in mid-season form.
You carry on, Doc. It's great. I do have a question about the maple thing, though. But you carry on.
Well, this is around maple. So we were doing an event with the Dallas Cowboys in 2010 called Tailgate Training Camp. And I was doing a bunch of commercials with ESPN and these media sources. We had about 10,000 people there. But it turned out to be 112 degrees by midday in San Antonio. So beyond Tony Romo and the defensive backs doing belly shots off of somebody at Coyote Ugly the first night of training camp going, that Parcells had left town, we were working our butts off. And sure, by mid-afternoon, me and 2 celebrity chefs are on stage, and I was cooking this recipe. So by the way, boys, I'm Canadian American. All right. I was born in Canada and I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, but barbecue's a noun in my life. But sitting on stage in this stupid chef's jacket in 112 degrees, I'd already changed 3 times. And sure enough, I put this fresh bottle of Quebec, Canada maple syrup out in the front of the table. And you learn, you never tell people from Texas that you're from Canada, ever.
Oh, yeah.
So, oh my God, is that real maple syrup? Yeah, that's the real thing. Can you use Aunt Jemima in this thing or Mrs. Butterworth? I go, no, this is real maple syrup. And you mix it with the thyme and the fresh lemon zest. And let me get to my recipe. Where do you get it? I said, well, this was shipped to me from somebody in Montreal, Canada. That's where they make the best maple damn syrup in the world. And she goes, well, where are you from? And I thought, and this Mexican chef next to me gives me an elbow because we already had this conversation. I go, I'm from Buffalo, New York. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you I ski to school both ways. All right, let's get over this. So we circumvent all those conversations. And she came over and she had a sample of the tasting at the end when the crowd dispersed. And she said, I will never eat Mrs. Butterworth again.
Wow.
So, I just changed a lower Southern Texan girl from eating Mrs. Butterworth to real maple syrup. So that's my Dallas Cowboys story from 10 years ago with this recipe. So,
well, if it can convert Texans, then then we'll have no problems up here in the north, and maybe even the Scots will figure out what real food tastes like.
Yeah. I would. Can I just go back and ask? Can I indulge Doc with a question about the maple? Yeah.
Sure.
Doc, when you're putting the maple sort of syrup stuff onto meat, for example, and rubbing it in, do you mix it with a sort of drier powder or something to really rub it in, or do you just kind of pour it on and it stays on? How do you do that?
No. You just marinate it. So essentially what this recipe is, get your fresh maple syrup. You might add a little soy sauce. Definitely fresh thyme. If you can get some fresh thyme from the grocer, great, do it. Fresh cracked pepper is essential. A little bit of mustard. And when you mix this up, what I do is I take the tenderloins. Listen, one principle I live by, the more tender a meat is out of the package, the less flavorful it is. That's why everybody mocks up beef tenderloin and pork tenderloin. They're melt in your mouth tender, but they're not muscle meat. So you don't get a lot of that collagen, that fat that comes down from low and slow. So from that principle, we do a lot of marinations with muscle meats, but we do a lot of marinations with tender cuts of meat like this. So what I do is I score the meat. So I'll take the tenderloin and put about a half an inch into it with a sharp knife on all the sides. And then I do 3 or 4 of these, throw it in a Ziploc bag, pour in your marinade, suck the air out of it, zip it closed, throw it in the 24 hours before game day, throw it in the fridge, and just flip it overnight. Make sure that marinade gets all in. And what it does, if you do this on charcoal, I swear to God, Neil, that it just caramelizes on the maple really comes through because it caramelizes on the pork.
And do you use your sous vide machine to get the air out of the zip bag? Do you?
No, I have a sous vide was still in the box on the. What I do is you take a Ziploc bag or any kind of double strap or double zip bag, zip it all the way down to the end, and then pinch a little hole at the end and. Suck the air out of it because if you suck it hard enough, some of the maple syrup will come up into your mouth, and then you can throw it in the fridge.
Yeah. And you're that one.
Joke, Neil. Do not make a joke.
I'm glad you got him.
I would say we do use our sous vide machine quite a bit for fishing. So, but it's that I'm something. I come on this podcast, Neil, every week, Doc, and I learn nothing from these jabronis, but so it's great to have somebody on I can learn from. So thank you for that. That's fantastic. I like the way you actually do score the meat, and so that the marinade can get into it properly. That's a good tip. I think not many people do that.
No, listen. We do this again. I do a lot of marinations because I do most of my prep Saturday night. Obviously,
Yeah.
And any of the smoking of meats, obviously, the game day. When I'm not on the road, I got all the time. It still takes a Wednesday, Thursday prep to get everything organized for the weekend. Tonight, for the opener, if it works, I'll release this recipe too. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know what Pop-Tarts are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I am old enough to know what a pop.
And by the way, Doc, Neil is 85 years old. So.
Right.
Wow. Listen, if I'm doing this recipe, just say I'm 95 and I quit school to eat full time. So, the Pop-Tart is something that I relished as a kid. So I saw this dude try it. Right? I said, I got to do this. So I just did a French pastry last night. And I made for the first time in my life, I've been baking. So I just made last night, without pectin, I made a beautiful fresh strawberry jam that's going in the Pop-Tart. I just made the pastry last night. And then I'm going to make a little powdered sugar mix, and I'm going to turn it into a nice glaze. And I'm going to try and manufacture on the grill tonight. I'm going to do Pop-Tarts on the grill. That's going to be my secret dessert. If it works, I'll publish the recipe and let you guys know. I think it's going to be good.
So I got about 7.5 hours roughly. What's your address again?
I got a friend at one of the airlines. Listen, we'll have a Next Fan Up conference, and listen, guys. I've become a pretty good chef, but the guys I'm working with, man, I give a shout out to my buddy who's co-hosting a couple of our shows. He's got one called Gastro Guru, and he makes the best game day cocktails, guys. Just unbelievable. You want to upsell, you want to up your game day libations. This guy his name is Jeremy Parsons. Shout out to him. I'm recording with him, and he's got these beautiful cocktail recipes for game day he's doing from the patio for Homegate. But believe me, we've got a whole army of celebrity chefs that are just as much into the NFL, and they cook worldwide at NFL stadiums. I've cooked at 8 of the last 13, I think, Super Bowls in a variety of ways. But these guys are far greater than me. And what I don't know and what you feed me, I can always get from the celebrities because they're very gracious with their knowledge. So.
Doc, is there a website or social media people can get some of this stuff?
You're going to be there's 4 new social media handles that are going to be launching here with a major social media influencer. It's going to be called Tailgate Homegate Nation, the same as the show. We're just starting up. We've got 8 contributing on the board of directors. We have 10 ambassadors, everything from the RV industry to celebrity backyard chefs and Amazon Prime and Food Network chefs. And those recipes, they'll all be contributing. So that kind of knowledge and those kind of recipes will all go through Tailgate, Homegate Nation. You can find that handle in a week or so. In the meantime, I've got a very slow social media. You can get me at Gridiron Chef. But this is just, we're in the infancy of launching Tailgate, Homegate Nation with the national radio show. And a lot of it is in its infancy. But you can also get me any time of the day at parkinglotpro@gmail.com. And I'm happy to share an entire gigabyte of proven game day recipes with anybody, with any genre, any team that need it. I love talking game day food at any time of the day or night.
Nice. And when Doc sends me those recipes that he talked about earlier, we'll post them on our Facebook page, facebook.com/NFU podcast. All right, Doc, first of all, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's now starving and salivating over all the great food that you talked about. So I do think it's time for us to get into the games.
Deal.
You don't want to talk about blacktop marinated flank steak for Super Sunday?
Oh, you found that, did you? Probably found that on my old site. That is my Neil. That's my most requested recipe.
I'm very interested in the lady who's made the little cupcakes.
Was that from the home gating ones? I don't know. Cupcakes. I don't know.
Yeah.
You'll have to refer to. You got my email address now. You can talk to me about it. I got so much stuff out there that's old. I don't know where I've been.
So that's the maple lemon pork tenderloin. Great.
Yeah.
That looks fabulous. My God.
All right, Neil, come back to us, man. Focus.
This football, it's overrated. Come on, let's talk about it.
Before we jump into the picks in chronological order, I, of course, have useless stats for you all. I love my useless stats. And this one's an NFL kickoff weekend one. Since 1978, when the NFL went to the 16-game schedule and excluding the abbreviated season of 1982, teams that are victorious in their season openers are more than twice as likely to reach the playoffs than losers of an opening game. So, of the 617 teams that have won their season openers, 322 went on to the playoffs. That's still that's essentially a 50-50 split there. Of those 322, 196 won division titles. But what's curious about that is of the 616 teams that lost the openers, 148 went to the playoffs. So it is definitely more advantageous to win your opener than to lose, for sure. By the way, there's a different number because the NFL had only 31 teams from 1999 to 2001, which gave us the odd number for the total number of openers. There you go.
That was when they added the Texans and before they re-added the Browns.
Correct. In 2019, that was just last year, just in case you forgot what year we're in. The 12 playoff teams compiled an 11-1 record on kickoff weekend, and all four participants in the conference championships, Green Bay, Kansas City, San Francisco, and Tennessee, won week one. We will not spend a lot of time talking about the Thursday night game, the Houston Texans, Kansas City Chiefs. I will just let you know that we have all picked the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm assuming, Doc, you are also taking the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the Texans are going to cover though. I'll take the Chiefs straight up. Yep.
The power rankings, which we'll get into, our current power rankings for the Chiefs is number 1. The Texans are number 9. The point spreads, which we take from the Vegas Insider consensus, so some lines may be larger or smaller depending on where you bid, is 9. The Chiefs are giving the Texans 9 points.
This, of course, the more interesting stat, perhaps, Jay, is that this is the first time since early February 2020 that we've had to put up with your inane stats.
There's a lot more to come.
Oh, yeah.
There's certainly a lot more to come.
I'm bracing myself for the injury report.
Well, speaking of, there's only 2 players of note on the injury report, both from the Houston Texans. Linebacker Jonathan Greenard is nursing an ankle injury, and wide receiver Brandon Cooks is nursing a quad. Both are listed as questionable for tonight.
By the way, and not to get too sidetracked, but Brandon Cooks, I mentioned this during the Superfan battle. Brandon Cooks only knows one route, ladies and gentlemen, and that's a go route. That's it. He knows how to go deep, and that's it. So all you guys that are in fantasy, they're like, Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is not a DeAndre Hopkins replacement. I don't know where this narrative has developed from.
That's unfair, Jay. He's got two routes. His other route is the one from the field to the blue tent.
Yeah, it's called go to IR route.
Exactly, yeah.
Come on, let him get through week 1 first.
James, before you do the next injury report, I think I might enjoy them more if I have a couple of Make It Rain margaritas to go with it.
Oh. That's on the old website. Yeah.
Neil has clearly found something, Doc. He's going to be on it all show.
Yeah, he is.
Our first Sunday game will be featured on Fox. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff. It is the Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. Now, our prior power ranking for the Seahawks, that was the power rankings we had at the end of the 2019 season. We did not re-rank them again until this current preseason. They were 7th. They've moved up to 4. The Falcons were 20th, and they've moved up to 17. The Falcons are currently favored by 3 points. The Seahawks are the power ranking pick. We seem to be a little divided on this so far. Seahawks have won 3 of the last 4 versus the Falcons, including last year in Atlanta, a 27-20 victory. However, it's not Matt Ryan's fault. He has 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for a 96.1 rating in 5 career starts versus Seattle. So what is Atlanta to do? How about bringing a runner like Todd Gurley? Since 2015, he leads the NFL in both rushing touchdowns, 58, and total touchdowns, 70, and ranks 2nd in both rushing yards and scrimmage yards, 5,404, 7,494. We all know that Gurley's knees are as old as Neil, 85. But that 85-year-old Neil just told us literally 2 weeks ago that a professional athlete goes out there in his first game in the season and his knees are going to feel like they're 20 again. So in game 1, I think Atlanta has the edge here at home. We got that West Coast team going to the East Coast at a 1 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons, as is Neil. But James, you disagree.
Yeah, Atlanta just never sit right with me, and that's not to disparage them in any way. It's just whatever hopes I typically have, they underachieve, and whenever I disparage them, they overachieve. And it'll probably happen here too. I'm picking against them, so they'll most likely win. On the injury front, though, there is a wide receiver for the Falcons on the injury report, and it's not Julio Jones. It's Russell Gage, who's nursing that inner thigh area. Defensive end Charles Harris has an ankle. Marlon Davidson nursing his knee, and cornerback Kendall Sheffield has a foot injury. For the Seahawks,
wait, time out. Before you get to the Seahawks, James, it's the kickoff show. We're in season 6. It's our first. What is that inner thigh area called again? What kind of
Seattle Seahawks?
What kind of injury is that again?
Sounded like a cut of meat.
The inner loin area, if you will.
Okay.
The Seattle Seahawks have Philip Dorsett on the injury report nursing a foot injury, and both tackles, Dwayne Brown and Cedric Ogbehi, are listed as questionable for Sunday. So offensive line problems for the Seahawks, not a shock over the last 3 years. Russell Wilson running for his life, kind of standard.
Except it's the Falcons, who aren't known to have a great pass rush. Doc, who you got in this one?
But the Falcons do have now, I think, 10 first-round draft choices on their roster. They're all repos or whatever. But I think that you're going to see this year, and I'm going to give you a really weird thing. I think the Seahawks are better when Russell is running for his life. They've been a wet paper bag on that offensive line for years. I don't know that anything's going to change, but I just think they've got too many weapons now. I think Chris Carson runs the ball too well. And really, you've got an entire defensive backfield now unproven in Atlanta. I'm taking Seattle on the road.
All right. So we are split, ladies and gentlemen, and the power rankings do have the Seahawks. So take that as you will.
If you want something to watch in this game, Jay, other than the quarterbacks and all the rest of it, try watching the Atlanta offensive line on the right-hand side, where they've got the 2 second-year guys, Lindstrom and McGarry, who came in with a lot of hype last year, but didn't do a huge amount until towards the end of the season where they played better, but they're back on the right side, so interesting watch to see how they get on.
The next game, CBS, the New York Jets are at the Buffalo Bills. The Jets moved down in our power rankings from the end of last season from 25 to 30. The Bills have moved up from 8 to 6. Vegas has got the Bills as 6.5-point favorites, and the power rankings will also take the Bills. The Jets have won 2 of the last 3, including the season ender in Buffalo last year, 13 to 6. But have you seen the Jets' new defense? Has anyone? Because I haven't seen it. It's terrible. Josh Allen has a rushing touchdown in 2 out of the 3 games versus the Jets. For all you DFS folks, Josh Allen is probably a great play. This is my lock of the week. I don't normally like to open up with a division rival game because we know they can go either way, but the Bills are a lock. I don't see it any other way. James and Neil, I don't know if you agree with the lock, but you're taking the Bills. Doc, who you got?
Oh, Bills for sure. But I think the biggest question right now, what are they giving here? I'm just looking here.
6.5.
6.5. All right. I feel sorry for the Jets. I'm starting to really feel sorry.
That's a phrase I've never heard.
It's like, because, well, anyways, I think the question is, Buffalo's got to get out of the gate. Don't take this for granted just because you've got the personnel now that things are going to go your way. I think they're going to have to get out strong, and it's a matter of whether Josh Allen gets his head together. If that head is straight this year, they're at least a 10-win team. I think they're going to come out of the gate strong. I think they're going to run the ball effectively, and I think there's just too much talent right now. I mean, Bill's got a top 6-7 roster in the NFL, and I think they're going to come out strong. So I'll go with the Bills.
Injuries?
For the Bills, biggest names, Josh Norman and Vernon Butler nursing hamstrings. For the Jets, LaMichael Perrine, the running back, is nursing an ankle injury. Guard Alex Lewis didn't practice yesterday due to a shoulder. Safety Marcus May is expected to practice, but he has calf tightness.
Oh, if there is any strength for the Jets defense, it's Marcus May. And the fact that he's already banged up, that just spells doom and gloom for New York. Is your boy, Neil, Sam Darnold going to see ghosts out there?
I wouldn't have thought so. I think he's fine. I'm quite interested to see how Chris Herndon plays. I think he was lost to injury for most of last season, and he was developing a good partnership with Darnold prior to his injury. So interesting to see him back. But like you guys say, I agree with Doc 100%. It's all about Josh Allen for the Bills this year, isn't it? If he makes that next step to being as good a passer as he is a runner, then it could be a long year in the AFC East for certain teams like yours, Jay.
Yeah, well, we'll get to my team when we get there. The next game on Fox is the Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions. The Bears have dropped from 19 to 25 in our power rankings, and surprisingly enough, the Lions moved up from 30th to 24th. I think the SuperFans might be smoking something, but Vegas actually likes the Lions in this one too. The Lions are giving 3 in this game. I just got to wonder if Vegas forgot that the Bears have one of the stronger defenses in the league. And I get that Mitch Trubisky was named the starter, but who did the Lions add on offense to score versus the Bears defense? Because I don't see anybody.
Peterson.
Adrian Peterson? Okay. Well,
DeAndre Swift.
Bears have won the past 4 versus the Lions. This is give me Adam and Eve on a raft, wreck them, a cup of mud, and an upset special. I think the Bears are going to handle the Lions without an issue.
I find there's a lot of hype, isn't there? There seems to be a very popular team this year, the Lions, for some reason, and I'm not sure I really see it.
I think a lot of it goes to Matthew Stafford coming out hot and was playing really strong and probably had a good MVP case if he had finished the season, but then he got injured.
Did he have a back injury? Was that a back injury he had?
I believe so.
It was.
Quarterbacks with back injuries don't have a great
Fractures
history.
in his spinal column, yeah. That's not something you easily come back from. And if he's fully healthy, cool. He's not on the injury report, but I don't believe he's 100% coming back from that injury. It's something that will labor and probably limit him for at least the first couple of games of the season, much like it did Carson Wentz last year.
And he's not a young man anymore, is he, really?
And his age is a factor as well. So
James, I'm not buying their head coach, the sort of wannabe Bill Belichick.
Yeah. And that was going to be my next thing. You look at this division of the North and the NFC, and I look at Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago, and I look at their coaches, and they're safe this year. Detroit isn't. A down year, I'd say even anything less than 10 wins, I think Patricia gets fired.
Yeah. I do often wonder what Jim Caldwell must be thinking. He had back-to-back 9 and 7 seasons and got the boot, didn't he? And look at the mess they've been in since.
Big names on the injury report, starting with Detroit. We got Kenny Galladay, DeAndre Swift, and Danny Amendola, all listed as questionable with various injuries. Yeah. And for the Chicago Bears, Khalil Mack, Cordero Patterson, David Montgomery, Jason Springs, along with Robert Quinn, all show up on the injury report as well.
Are you a DeAndre Swift fan, Doc?
No, I think he's one of the blue chips this year that could change the dynamic, just like we're going to see tonight in Kansas City, that could change the path of the season. You got a coach. This is his last year, unless they get to 10 wins in the playoffs, right? And who knows what Jeff Okudah is going to be opposite Trufant. I don't think there's much offensively they got to worry about against Chicago, to be honest with you. But I think Kenny Galladay is a top 6 or 7 receiver. He was heading that way. And I think everybody's hanging their hat on the fact that Stafford looked probably the best in his career before he got injured last year. And I just think that they're playing right now for the fact that do you really want to tear this thing down again and start over? The Ford family's grayer than gray already. I mean, I just think they're going to be they're going to use the talent they've got. And Adrian Peterson, all he does is just add a veteran presence for a young backfield. But Kerryon Johnson is on IR more than he's not. So I just think DeAndre Swift may come with maybe 15 to 20 carries. If he gets on a roll, he could change the path of this franchise. He is the one blue chip player. I'm going with the Lions this week. So,
well, here's another reason I have caution for picking the Lions. Former Eagle, current tackle for the Lions, Halapoulivaati Vaitai. If he starts, I'd be concerned, especially when Khalil Mack lines up over him.
God, you changed your tune. As soon as he took off that green uniform, he's crap. Is that how it works?
No, he's a good, solid backup.
I mean, last year he was all pro in your mind.
He was not all pro last year. He struggled mightily.
By the way, I have a late minute addition here from the SuperFans. Lion SuperFan Josh has written in his game preview finally, saying on offense, they need to stay aggressive throughout the whole game to have a shot to win. They have performed well in the first half of games since Bevel took over the offense. Stay aggressive in the second half and things should work out. O-line should hold their own. Defense, most of the underachievers are gone, but so is Slay. Enter first-rounder Jeff Okudah. This is a downgrade, but the Lions have upgraded across the unit, so I expect a dramatic improvement from 2019. They're lucky enough to get Trubisky here, or as he puts it, Trash Bisky here, so that helps. X Factor, Kerryon needs to handle the load. The load of Swift is indeed out because AP can only do early downs. His final score prediction, Chicago 23, Detroit 31. I think he's way off there.
Yeah, he might want to lower that Detroit number by 14.
Well, and I also think if Detroit wins, it's a low-scoring game. It's not a high-scoring
Absolutely.
next game on the docket is the Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens on CBS. This is where I thought the number one announced team was going to go, not to New England, but who am I? I'm just PodVader. The Ravens finished last season ranked number 1, but have fallen to 2. The Browns stayed ranked at 22. Ravens are favored by 8 points in this game. So, of course, the power rankings will take the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens actually own the Browns, especially recently. But it was in September that the Browns were one of the few teams to beat the Ravens in Baltimore by a score of 40-25. I think this game is closer than the spread might have you believe. I'm going to stick with the Ravens at home, but I do not believe they are going to win by 8 points. I will take the Browns with the points, but the Ravens to win straight up. Neil, you have locked the Ravens in.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Jay, the Ravens quite literally are the Browns, aren't they?
Yes, I suppose.
Historically speaking. I can see this being a double-digit game. I don't see anything new from the Browns over what happened last year. Again, another team loaded with talent, and yet they can't get out of their own way. So, no, the Ravens are going to steamroll this team. I always think early in the season, especially this year again with no preseason, we're going to see defenses probably be the dominant force in the first couple of weeks until the offenses really click into gear. So, and I can see the Ravens, I can see this being a shutout. Maybe a 25-point win for the Ravens.
Doc, you've ever been to a Cleveland Browns tailgate?
Muni lot, baby. Muni lot. Yeah. They know how to do it right. I got a great story. The dog pound, actually, I'm so old that when Cleveland lost their team, we used to hang Save Our Browns signs up in the parking lot in Buffalo, and hosted a lot of the dog pound, the original dog pound, are friends of mine. And a story, Big Dog, the founder of the dog pound, when they didn't have a team, came up, wore their jerseys, tailgated with us. I remember his 400-pound ass walking through the parking lot with a cup full of my chili cheese and salsa appetizer mixed with scalloped potatoes and just walking through, high-fiving fans. And so we always supported them. Another blue-collar town, down the lake. And when I get a chance to go to the Muni lot, it's something special. They're like Buffalo fans. It just, you feel sorry for each other. And we know the church in the park, our camaraderie in the parking lot. We know we're about to go, oh, crap, it's 12:30. I got to get up to security protocol to get to the stadium. And you just know you just had a great 3 or 4 course meal and you're just going to get your ass kicked, but you're going to do it holding hands. That's the way it feels in both those markets, So this one, I don't know. This is it for Baker Mayfield. I'm sorry. This is it. But I think Myles Garrett's lucky to be playing football right now and that big money. I just think there's enough studs here that if at all, there's an alchemy that's got to happen with this team. Odell, shut up. Baker, do your job. Nick, keep being a stud. Kareem, right behind him, keep being another stud. He just re-upped. I just think, and Jarvis Landry, possession receiver, but that defense looks better every year. I think this is going to be a 3-point game. I'm taking the Ravens, but here's the kicker. I think this is my prediction for the whole NFL season. You've got an all-world quarterback setting the stage here in the NFL, an MVP that is a running quarterback and is as skinny as my girlfriend's diet. That if you want to look at anything that could change the course of the American Football Conference, it's going to be a blindside hit or something. That if you want to stay a running quarterback, all right, you are going to set a new stage, a new path for the NFL. It's already there. But the fact of the matter is, I say, meet Cam Newton. All right? This is going to be a 7-year career with injuries if you keep doing what you're doing. I still can't decide if it's an anomaly, but some defense is going to have to teach him a lesson. I'm not saying it's going to be the Browns, but at some point in the first 6 games this season, I can't see him continuing on such a proficient path that he is. He's a great athlete, but this is completely something the NFL has never seen. You want to be a running quarterback? Meet Russell Wilson. The right time, the right place, and the referees will protect you. But he just did everything so much right, so much crescendo at the same time for him last year that made him a world star. I can't see him doing that again. At some point early in this season, there could be a game changer. I can't see them staying on the same path. I'll take them this game, but I think it's going to be a 3-point game. And I think Cleveland is going to be between an 8-8 and 9-17 this year, and just underneath the talent of the Steelers, but they're good enough to stay with them this entire game. They did last year, and they actually kicked their ass in the one game. But I'll take the Ravens and the 3, or by 3. So
I actually don't think the Browns will stay at 22 in our power rankings for very long. One other thing, the fantasy narrative on Mark Ingram. Why is the hate? Why is there so much hate on Mark Ingram? People are like, "Oh, Mark Ingram is it because of J.K. Dobbins."
Yep.
Mark Ingram, one, has shared a backfield before and still has gotten his. So I'm not worried about Mark Ingram whatsoever. Mark Ingram, I think, is going to be a stud running back for your fantasy team. And if you don't have him, I do. Ha ha! Take that.
Quick injury hits for this one. Justice Hill and Chris Moore for the Ravens show up on the injury report, thigh and finger respectively. And for the Cleveland Browns, Greedy Williams and Kevin Johnson, 2 corners, along with MJ Stewart, all showing up in the injury report. Chris Hubbard, offensive tackle, center, J.C. Treader, and linebacker Mac Wilson. Wilson did report that he does not need surgery for his hyperextended knee, but he most likely won't play in this game.
All right. The next game is on Fox. It is the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers moved down just a slight bit from 6 to 7. The Vikings stayed steady at 10th. Vegas has got the Vikings as the favorites at 2.5, but the power rankings will take the Packers in this particular game. I think this could be a game of the week. I think this might be the game of the week. I think it's a very even matchup. Kirk Cousins, that's James' favorite quarterback, is the only quarterback with 25 plus touchdowns in the last 5 seasons. However, he has 12 touchdowns and 4 interceptions for a 103.4 rating in 5 career games versus Green Bay. The 4 interceptions is what I want to highlight there in 5 games. Mr. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, has 2,878 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions for a 105.5 rating in 12 career games at Minnesota. Those are just his career stats at Minnesota. I say a turnover late is the difference in the game, and the Packers will steal a division win on the road. Neil, you like Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, though.
Yeah, but I have another question for Doc, to be honest, more interestingly. Doc, if I want to not have too sweet a Lynchburg lemonade, would I increase the Jack Daniels honey, or should I reduce the lemonade? I don't like it.
Neil, interesting question. Thanks for the question, Neil. If you add a little more citrus, and sorry, now you crack it with Jack. You go ahead. Yeah. Especially
I'll just beg.
Jack.
Yeah, nice Jack Daniels honey. You must get some of that. Thank you. Right. What's this football thing? Okay, right. I think Minnesota will win this game, Jay. Too big a game for them to lose, I think, really. 2 teams I think are probably equally matched. This could be one hell of a division this year, actually. The NFC, North. What is it? North. I was about to say Central there and show my age. So yeah. There's too much going on in Green Bay, Jay. Aaron Rodgers, he's got to be totally cheesed off with quite literally cheesed off with the.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, for getting the quarterback in round 1 and then some big fullback sized running back in round 2, not really helping him out with weapons. So be interesting that whole relationship between him and the head coach is going to be interesting this year, and I think that might just throw them off their game. I also don't think we can see last year as any sort of guide, because they were probably the worst. Now, what were they, 13-3? something like that. The worst 13-3 team of all time.
Quite possibly. Doc, who you got?
I think that Mr. Rogers has got something to prove. Look, beyond wide receiver one, the rest of that wide receiving roster in Green Bay are possession receivers. And a lot of them are going into their second season with Rodgers. I think he wants to prove something, and I think they've lost too much on the back end. Listen, Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris do a great job in Minnesota, but those cornerbacks, Mike Hughes and Holton Hill, they can't stay. And I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be throwing all day on these guys. It's going to keep it close. I think Dalvin Cook can torch the Green Bay defense. But I'm going to take the Pack by 1. I'm going to take them to win this game at the end. Regardless, I think that he's kind of fallen into QB2 range, and I think it's pissing him off. So I think he's got something to prove. I think he's going to come out strong here. And you're right. I think it was a very weak 13-3 record. It was a paper schedule. But that being said, there's enough talent on that team. And I think, again, just summation, I think the Vikes don't know what they have in the defensive secondary and now have lost a great pass rusher. So I think this one pushes the Pack. So.
Plus, you can never. I mean, you've always got to be wary of an Alan Lazard breakout game.
Well, the guy that I think has gone forgotten, and I don't know why, is Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Oh, no, he's terrible.
He is not terrible. He is far from terrible.
Okay. The only use I could have for him is probably using his name in Scrabble.
And on that note, so I'm taking the Green Bay Packers. I agree with Doc. They are missing a pass rush because Danielle Hunter has been placed on injured reserve, so I don't know how they're going to get after Aaron Rodgers without blitzing. No other Viking shows up on the injury report, but Packers who show up on the injury report include guard Billy Turner, linebackers Randy Ramsey and Orrin Burks, and defensive tackle Montrevious Adams.
I mean, look at their wide receivers there. They've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and they've got Equanimous St. Brown. They're not collecting wide receivers. They're collecting vowels and consonants.
As far as receiving corps go, they got the best names in the league.
Yes, they most certainly do.
Incredible.
The CBS game, Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Neither of these teams moved in our power rankings. They both stayed at the same spot, 16 and 26, respectively. The Colts are favored by 8 points in this game. There are some people on this podcast that don't like Phillip Rivers. That might be the understatement of the year that I just wrote.
Really? Who?
And they say he was holding the Chargers back. That said, did you know he did pass for 314 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, for a career high 154.4 rating in his last game versus Jacksonville, which was last year in December with the LA Chargers, who have, I would say, worse weapons than the Colts. Also, the mustachioed wonder, Gardner Minshew Magic, has 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in 6 starts at home. He threw an interception in a win versus Indianapolis in the season ender last year. Turnovers will be the difference. I think the Colts will be the beneficiary on that end. And oddly enough, as much as you say Phillip Rivers was terrible, James, you are also taking the Phillip Rivers-led Indianapolis Colts.
Only because the Colts are a far better team than the Jacksonville Jaguars, despite Phillip Rivers. Now, will he do something crazy in the second half to put the game in jeopardy? Absolutely. Not putting that past him, because his arm is older than he is. Matter of fact, his arm was probably the one that flipped the switch when God said, "Let there be light." But other than that, names on the injury report for the Colts include safety Julian Blackmon, center Ryan Kelly, and tackle Anthony Costanzo. For the Jaguars, just Tyler Davis, a tight end, shows up.
Doc, who you like?
I'm rooting for Phillip Rivers. Gosh darn it.
Somebody has to.
Yeah. Listen, San Diego. I'm about to sing the Charger song dating back to the Flutie days. That line in San Diego / LA for the last 5 years has been an absolute joke. Yes, he's got a rubber arm, but Jack Doyle is a great tight end. He's at least a very good tight end. And you're going to get T.Y. Hilton, who's going to be healthy for at least one game, who is an elite receiver. I think Michael Pittman is going to show something this season. You're finally playing behind a number one ranked by many metrics offensive line. It's going to have a change. Give somebody a veteran status like Phillip Rivers between a difference between 2.5 and 2.9 seconds to throw the ball, gets them an additional read. I think that they are a 10-win team. I think they easily handle another team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, that fall into the Buffalo Bills, Cleveland Browns category. I feel really sorry for my Jaguar fans. What's the matter, Bunky? Another season of losing everybody. It's like every year there's something with these guys. But Mr. Porn Mustache, I'm a big fan of him. But I just think that Indy gets off on the right foot here. I think that you're going to see a different Phillip Rivers, and I think he's a 30 to 35 touchdown guy if he gets protected, and they certainly have the line to do it. So, regardless, I'm taking that's more of a preseason analysis, but I'll take for sure the Colts to cover
Did you
too.
just call the Jaguars Bunky?
Yeah. Those old commercials. Well, what's the matter, Bunky? You say you've lost your wife and your kids at the same time. Oh, God. It's like every bloody season. It's something with the Jaguars. Cannot never get off the schneid. So I feel sorry for my Everbank field tailgaters. But, God, it's like I get depressed even talking about them.
Neil, they're tanking for Trevor.
I think
tanking
so.
For Trevor.
I'm going to say, references to this Bunky fellow. It's, I will fight anybody who says Americans don't have a culture. In terms of the Jacksonville Jaguars, though, come on. Hey, there's always talk about tanking, of course, and of course you can't tank in the NFL, but what you can do is strip your roster back from all its main talent and go from there, and you'll naturally lose games. So yeah, they probably are looking to go for Trevor Lawrence, but knowing the Jaguars being so inept, they probably will fail at that as well.
Our next game at 1:00, and by the way, there are way too many 1:00 games. Come on, a little more balance, please, NFL. Features the Las Vegas Raiders and the Carolina Panthers, and I need to talk to the people in the back room because we still have the Raiders with the Oakland abbreviation. We need an LVR, please. Thank you. But the Raiders fell from 15 to 23 in our power rankings. The Panthers 27 to 29. The Raiders on the road are actually favored by 3 points in this one. Before I read Monty's write-up, some condolences to the Monty family as he lost his father today, and he asked us to toast his dad this weekend, who was a big football fan, and we shall toast him post haste, maybe with one of those Lynchburg lemonades you were mentioning earlier, Neil.
Well, I think in Raider, in light of him being a Raiders fan, we're probably better going for the classic, I would call it, Hail Mary cocktail, which has a delightful vodka in it, which is certainly one of my favorites.
Monty's write-up is Raids need to win by 2 scores and control the entire game. If they can't easily handle the new-look Panthers, maybe I am the one that is a tier off. All right. It's a very short from Monty.
Well, when I think of Monty, the word off usually follows one other word.
These two teams haven't played since 2016. The Panthers barely beat the Raiders wherever the Raiders happened to be in 2016. I don't know if they were in LA or Oakland or Vegas, wherever they were. Last season, Panthers had a -14 takeaway giveaway ratio. Teddy Two Gloves takes over after a 5-0 stint with the Saints, in which he threw 9 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. However, the Panthers' weapons are not the Saints' weapons. And that brings me to this story from my Pros with Joe's league draft. For those who are unaware, I was invited to participate in the Pros with Joe's charity fantasy football. By the way, we had a terrible draft because I had a completely different drafting philosophy than my Joe did, and it ended up being a mishmash of both, and we ended up with just lousy players. But at one point in the draft, there was a pro, and I wish I had written down his name, who said the following sentence: Teddy Two Gloves is surrounded by massive offensive weapons in Carolina and should have a phenomenal fantasy season. To which I said, what are you smoking? Because I could use some of that. The only massive weapon that Teddy Two Gloves has is Christian McCaffrey. That's it. That's it. Who else is on that team that's a massive weapon for Teddy Bridgewater that's going to be even better than what he had in New Orleans for 5 games?
Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore,
DJ Moore is a rising star, but not yet. DJ Moore is a rising star.
They feel like another
competent
team.
Wide receivers.
They feel to me like another team who are doing a sort of similar thing to the Jacksonville Jaguars and stripping out talent, going with young guys. Didn't they draft like 9 guys and they were all defensive players? And that takes time. This is not their year. They're also looking for a quarterback, and
they have a brand new coach from the college ranks. And I'm not saying that college coaches can't be NFL coaches, but there's a learning curve there.
Well, they did bring in, I mean, you guys probably watched quite a lot of LSU last year. They brought in Joe Brady, who was the brains, if you like, behind that Joe Burrow season. So, you know, he's an exciting guy to have in the NFL.
If we're going to stick with the narrative that we've held all preseason, the one thing we can say about the Raiders is they have a lot more returning pieces than Carolina does. To me, I'm going to put a lot more value on that, especially early on this season, than I will with a team that's got brand new pieces everywhere.
Okay.
You know, there's no point in bringing back pieces if their pieces are terrible.
That part, Neil, because I'm still like mind boggled by Gruden's statements a couple of seasons ago where he was what was he doing? He was he was looking for a pass rush after trading someone to Chicago, and I don't think they found it yet. So they may be returning, like Neil said, all these pieces, but what's the point if they don't perform better? And this should be a good test for them, you know, for this defense to play better, because it's continuity of them playing together for a year as opposed to this entire team they're going up against who's been thrown together this offseason for, you know, most part. This is a game they should win, and yet still somehow they'll find a way to screw it up. Also, they're not disciplined on the defensive side of the ball. Aren't they still one of the most penalized teams in football on defense?
Are they? I don't know.
They were last year.
There you go.
So I know they were definitely top 10. I'm not sure if they were top 5, but this defense is undisciplined when it comes to the number of penalties they draw. On the injury report, there's not much to say here for either team. Trent Brown and Malik Collins show up on the injury report for the Raiders, and for the Panthers, only guard Dennis Daly.
For as terrible as Neil has said the pieces are on the Raiders, he is taking the Raiders along with me. James, you are taking the Panthers. Doc, who are you taking?
I'm taking the Raiders. There's a player I've been watching since Hard Knocks, and I followed him in college. But that Jonathan Abram, who was out last season, and I think he is a budding He's going to be a budding safety superstar in the NFL. But they've got to add to, like, they got some other talent there beyond white elephant that was Cleveland Farrell. I think Maurice Hurst, who is right on the depth chart behind Malik Collins, is another stud. They've got the young talent on this club has got to keep developing. I think at this point, Darren Waller, if he can keep on the same track, he's literally a top 10 offensive threat in the NFL. And I think there's going to be there's a growth need there and I don't think there's any problem matching up against the Panthers. I will just say something not necessarily in defense of Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy Two Gloves. He's a game manager, and nobody is going to tell me anything but that. I think DJ Moore, not anything against what anybody else was thinking as far as, but I think DJ Moore is a budding star. I think by week 4, he's going to be a top 10 receiver. People are going to be picking him up in fantasy, but Teddy is not that accurate of a thrower. Yeah, he had stars to throw to, but he only had one number 1 receiver in New Orleans. We had no number 2 receiver other than you had an MCL tear with Alvin Kamara, who was playing at 70%, and you had an injured tight end. So he had enough weapons, but not an overabundance amount of weapons. But I just watched him manage games in that 5-game stretch. Hats off to him. He got the money, but he's going to have to come out and completely shock me to think anything otherwise the remainder of the season. I think it was a bad sign by the Panthers. He should have stayed a backup, but that's what I got to say about that.
So. All right. I really don't want to talk about this next game, but we will. It's on CBS. It's the Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots. The Dolphins actually moved up our power rankings from 29 to 27. The Patriots have fallen from 5 to 13. They are favored by 6.5 points in this game. However, and I can't believe I have to say this, but the Dolphins have won 2 of their last 3 versus the Patriots, including the season ender in Foxborough last season. I am certainly very worried about the Patriots offense with new inaccurate quarterback Cam Newton, with only Julian Edelman and James White to really throw the ball to. But the Patriots defense is still there, despite the opt-outs, and will finish the season top 5. I said it before. I will continue to say it. No Patrick Chung, you say? Welcome the younger version of Chung and Kyle Duggar. No Dante Hightower? Welcome the younger version and Mr. Rolls-Royce himself, Juwan Bentley. How are you going to throw on the secondary with the defensive MVP leading the way on the outside in Stephon Gilmore? It is the deepest position on this team. Defense wins championships, although there will be no championship for the Patriots this year. But they will certainly win this game, and they will win this game easily.
Well, Pod, that's good for Chung because he can stay at home with the white lines.
Right.
Well, I don't see how this is even much of a contest. The Dolphins are presumably going to start Ryan Fitzpatrick again, and that's all I need to know.
Well, Neil has got this as his upset special.
Yeah, I think, Jay, first of all, that little ramble you had there, one does wonder how many Make It Rain margaritas you've had in this podcast. But come on. I mean, you're sitting there telling me that you're not going to miss your Hightower, son of Bubba Smith. You're not going to miss Patrick Chung, Snowy Chung. And
nope.
I mean, that's just rubbish. Sorry. Your defense is not going to be as good as it has been the last few years because you can't lose that sort of talent and you're replacing it with average guys and be as good. You might still be a really good defense, but you're not going to be as good. But
Neil,
like
Patrick Chung is an average guy. So almost any safety can replace him.
Yeah, well, we'll see how the ex-New York Jet Terrence Brooks does there for those guys. But what I would say, Jay, is it's this season for you. It's all about Cam Newton, isn't it? I mean, if you're going to make any strides in this division and in playoffs, or even think about playoffs, Newton's got to play really well, and that's the only question really for me about the New England Patriots. It's what does Cam Newton do? And in this game, Fitzpatrick always has 2 or 3 games where you say, my God, he's good. And then before he has his meltdown and has some terrible games, and I think they'll come in there and do a number on you guys, and it's going to be back to our humble pie discussion at the start of this podcast.
All right, Doc.
Quick hit on the injuries.
Oh, all right. Go ahead.
Go injuries.
Dolphins, Calvin Noy has a hand injury. Byron Jones nursing an Achilles. Xavier Howard nursing a knee. In case you missed it, that's their starting two corners. Mike Gesicki has a glute injury. Preston Williams and Devontae Parker, presumably the starting wide receivers, knee and hamstring respectively. For the Patriots, Pod, you can attest to this better than I can. Gunnar Olszewski?
Olszewski, who cares? Move on.
Okay, Julian Edelman, knee injury.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay. Cash Malua, linebacker.
Move on.
Chase Winovich, defensive end.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay.
He's probably our top
Yadni,
pass rusher.
Okay, and Yadni Kajust, tackle.
He's a backup tackle. We're good.
Okay.
Okay, Doc.
I'm assuming there is no Patriots on the roster named Bob Smith.
No.
Not my injury report.
I'll tell you something. Pod, I'm going with the Pats. I think the divorce story this season is going to be the most watched in the NFL. Who's doing what? Who's doing better? Could they live without each other? And I think if Cam wants anything more than a 3-year deal and wants to get over $30 million, he's got to get out of the gate and win the games he's supposed to. And this is one of the easier games for them to sneak out a win. I think James White has a big year. I'm taking the Pats.
All right. Now, before we get to the 4:00 games, there's one last 1:00 game, and it happens to be a live Superfan battle.
We don't have to talk about this game.
Yeah, I agree.
We do. It is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Washington Redskins. Eagles moved down a little bit in the power rankings from 11 to 12. The Redskins stayed steady.
Hey, stop saying the R word. It's twice now.
I'm sorry. You're right. Oh, my gosh. Square jar. The Washington football team. It's even written here as Redskins. I got to change that. All right. Washington football team is stayed steady at 31 in the power rankings. Philly is favored by 6. That may not be enough. And perhaps I should change my lock of the week because Philly has swept Washington for the past 3 seasons, 6 games straight. Power rankings say it all, 12 to 31. This could easily be my lock of the week. But, Neil, I'll allow you to give your team a fighting chance.
No, I don't really want to. James? Oh, seriously, I mean, okay, if I'm going to say stuff, I have to say something about this. I'm contractually obliged. Well, what can you say? I think Washington's defensive line will be really good. Really interested to see Chase Young go against Philadelphia and their diminished offensive line. Although I see there's a bit of breaking news there with Jason Peters getting the deal he wanted to move back to tackle. James, a bit extra cash in the pocket for the guy. So that's a good news for you. Washington's going to struggle offensively until we see what we've got with Haskins and everybody else on the offense apart from Terry McLaurin. It's question mark after question mark. We've got some talent there, we think, but we haven't seen anything in preseason, of course. And guys generally look pretty good when they're not getting hit in practice. So it's up in the air. What I do think is the defensive line will be solid for Washington, and that may get us a few wins, but I can't see us getting more than 3, maybe 4 wins, Jay. Certainly not this game.
Well, the thing that scares me about Washington, obviously, is Terry McLaurin, because I don't know which corner is going to line up over him. And in both games last year, he took a 6-yard slant to the house. So, I mean, if he catches a ball in stride, he's pretty much gone. So that is worrisome. On the flip side, Peter switches back to tackle. Matt Pryor is going to start at the guard, vacated by Brooks. So the offensive line does restore some continuity. It's a combination we've played with before. First game out the gate, it probably will be shaky at the start, but then that falls on Carson Wentz making his reads quickly and accurately. I feel as though, despite the injury, Miles Sanders should have a heavy load in this game. And speaking of the injuries, Antonio Gandy Golden for Washington, wide receivers in the concussion protocol. Cornerback Kendall Fuller is nursing a knee, and linebacker Thomas Davis is a bit banged up, according to the defensive coordinator there.
James, can I ask a question about the Eagles?
Sure.
Has there been any news or signs that Jalen Hurts might get some special sort of Taysom Hill-like packages there?
That's been the rumor all offseason, but that hasn't been seen in any practice thus far. So everyone presumes that he'll be the Taysom Hill in Philadelphia, but it doesn't look like he's practicing that way. He is solidly the number 2 quarterback, and that's about it. Reporters have asked this week that of Coach Peterson. He's hinted at maybe some wildcat things that they can run with Hurts, but outside of that, you won't see him lined up at wide receiver, fullback, or tailback. He's definitely not playing special teams. Injuries for the Eagles include Javon Hargrove, who has a pec injury, Derek Barnett nursing a hamstring, Jalen Rieger is going to be out for at least a couple of weeks with a shoulder, Miles Sanders nursing a hamstring, so keep an eye on that on Sunday.
You have an injured wide receiver? No, that can't be.
Yeah, we have an injured wide receiver. I know, shocker, right? And here's another injured wide receiver, Alshon Jeffrey, nursing a foot. He most likely will miss the first couple of games as well. Deshaun Jackson is healthy, though, so he'll start week 1. We don't know if he'll finish the game because his age as well, because he pulled his hamstring against Washington last year in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, James. Running for consecutive 85-yard touchdowns against Washington, that's going to tire anybody out.
Noted. I am taking my Philadelphia Eagles in this game to win. It will be ugly, but we will somehow pull it off.
Doc, who you got?
Yeah, I got the Eagles. I think it's going to be a 1 or 2 point game. I think that the story coming out of this, even in a loss, is I want to see late third into the fourth quarter. I want to see that defensive line. I think it's a special story. It's what they've got. And every sense of motivation, they're playing for a coach that they just welcomed back to practice. Yes, he was in cancer treatments. I think that
that's right.
QB1's got to prove himself. Otherwise, they're going to be in the QB sweepstakes in the draft. So, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think there's enough talent there in Washington, and with McLaren again, who can turn it on at any time. He gets a couple of big take it to the house moments. This game's going to be close. I will say, James, I always loved him when he was in New Orleans. I love Boston Scott. I think he continues to develop as a multi-purpose weapon, but I think it's going to be a 1 or 2 point game. I'm taking the Eagles.
Neil, how long before we see Mr. Leg Sock himself, Alex Smith?
I don't think you will, Jay.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all this season.
I think Haskins will do enough for Washington to not get benched. That I would say that's the. I have hopes for Haskins because I think he looked quite good when he did come on late in the season last year. But you don't want to get too many high hopes up. I'm used to Washington letting me down, so I think no, I don't think we'll see him. At the moment, he's sitting third on the depth chart as well, so he's got to get through Kyle Allen, hasn't he, before he gets onto the field. But don't let that take away from what has been a fantastically uplifting story in the misery of 2020.
Well, the misery of 1 o'clock games is over. And now we have 3 4-o'clock games. Just 3. I mean, how in the world are we left like that?
It's week 1. They have to do better.
And by the way, one of the 3 o'clock games, which we start with because it's a 4:05 kickoff on CBS, is one that you can skip. It's the Los Angeles Chargers at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Chargers moved from 24 to 21 in our power rankings. The Bengals remain at 32, dead last, just in case you didn't know. The Chargers favored by 3 in this particular game. Bengals have won 4 of their past 5 versus Chargers. That loss was the last time they played in 2018. That is one of the useless stats of the week. This is an easy one to see the Bengals steal a win, but even without Derwin James, I think the Chargers defense versus a rookie making his debut is just enough advantage for them to win. Speaking of which, with a start by Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, at least one rookie quarterback will have started in week 1 in 13 consecutive seasons, the longest streak in the NFL since at least 1950. Do you gentlemen happen to know who is the most successful rookie quarterback?
As far as record?
As far as record.
And what time period are we talking about?
Last 13 seasons.
Last 13 seasons, rookie quarterback. Cam Newton?
Cam Newton had a record of 6-10. So you are wrong.
Last 13 years. Andrew Luck probably had a poor season to start with, didn't he?
Andrew Luck is tied for second with an 11-5 record.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go. So who would have got a better record as a rookie?
Oh gosh, please don't tell me it's Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, no, Ben Roethlisberger is too far back.
Too far back, yeah.
Okay.
Try to go through the divisions.
All right, I'll give you guys a hint.
Okay.
He is in your division.
Dak?
It is Dak Prescott.
Oh,
13-3 record in 2016.
That's right.
Oh.
Just so you know,
sorry, Dallas has just been so inept the last couple of years. I keep forgetting they went 13-3.
just so you know, the gentleman, the second place, all with an 11-5 record, would be Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, Matt Ryan. The first name, though, that was on my list in 2008, Joe Flacco, 11-5. Your worst starting rookie quarterback is Deshaun Kaiser, 0-15.
Oh, wow, that hurts.
I mean, he was in Cleveland, so that's one reason.
And now he's the primary backup at Las Vegas, isn't he? The Raiders.
I believe so.
Yeah.
By the way, if you want another reason that you never necessarily want to give up on your rookie quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford 2-8 his rookie season.
Well, I mean,
Troy Aikman
at that point.
Troy Aikman is the poster boy for that, isn't he? Wasn't he like 1-15 or something?
1-15. Yep.
And he went on to win 3 Super Bowls.
And Drew Bledsoe also didn't have a very good rookie season. And then Drew Bledsoe was the greatest Patriots quarterback.
We're having a nice time. Don't mess it up with Patriot talk.
Hit on the injuries. Chargers have Mike Williams and Mike Pouncey listed, and the Bengals all defense. Defensive tackles Mike Daniels and Geno Atkins. Safety Sean Williams.
Can I make a bold prediction for the season here with this game?
Well, you've already made a bold prediction in the fact that you're the one taking the Bengals here, although I don't know who Doc has.
That does link to my bold prediction. My bold prediction is the Chargers will be picking number 1 overall next year.
Ooh.
Right.
I think Tyrod won't last very long, and then they're going to be chucking it to a rookie who can't play.
Wow. You don't think Justin Herbert can play?
No. Did you watch him at Oregon? He had a great offensive line with probably the best offensive tackle in any form of football still playing there, and the target. I mean, he had opportunities there. He was terrible. So no, I don't see him. Certainly not this year, Jay. He's going to need at least a year or two to get into the league. No. He can't play just now.
Wow. James and I are taking the Chargers, Doc.
Absolutely. Thought about locking this too.
I think Chargers top 5 defense. I think Mr. Game Manager Tyrod Taylor will play good enough. I think Cincinnati is in this game. I am fascinated to see how Joe Burrow does. I think there's enough horses if everybody stays healthy Tyler Boyd's better than we're giving him credit for. John Ross has never shown up. But A.J. Green, when he's healthy, hasn't played in 2 years. I think Joe Mixon is a stud. I think that everybody's completely enamored. I know he played around an incredible team, but Joe Burrow has got that something. And if it shows up week 1 in the NFL, it's going to turn it on its ear. I'm going to take, I think the Chargers have got overall talent. I still think they're going to win by a field goal, but I think Cincinnati's coming out of the gate and they're going to head towards a 500 season. That's my prediction for the Bengals. They'll be in this game the entire way, but I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think I've been too enamored with them on Hard Knocks. So
I couldn't agree with you more in terms of Joe Burrow and who he is as a player, as a guy, and also he has more talent around him in key positions than you usually see for the number 1 overall pick. So he's got a great chance. I mean, we all just loved that season last year, and maybe a little bit of an underrated element to last season to his play was what he did behind what was not a great LSU offensive line last year. And I'm just like you, Doc, just desperate to see this guy in the field.
Neil, I'll tell you, if they can give him average protection, he's going to be an NFL thrower of the ball. He will be. You're right. He had a good offensive line, but when you got 5 top recruits running fly patterns, that's all they did, right? And now your OC, and again, the biggest question is he's got a different OC. And last year that was the magic elixir that's now in Carolina. I think though, if A.J. Green stays healthy and Joe Mixon runs like the stud he is and they play average on the offensive line, that's at least a 500 team. So I'll be really enamored to see what he does. He's got that something. I can't put my finger on it.
And that's often the thing that you need with a quarterback, isn't it? You can forget all the physical stuff. It's that intangible something that he has, and he's got it. You're absolutely right. And you can see he's the sort of guy, Jay, that you could imagine just taking over that division for 10 years.
Yeah, I've heard you say that about someone before, Neil. He's about 4 seasons or so in, and
Sam Darnold is coming. I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sam Darnold is coming.
The game that I don't understand, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Buck and Mr. Aikman are going to the other 425 kickoff. I don't know why they're not going to the 425 kickoff that is most interesting to our special guest, Doc, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints. The Bucs have moved up only to 14th in our power rankings. The Saints dropped a spot from 2 to 3 in our power rankings. They are favored by 3.5 points in this particular game. I think the pieces are in place for Tampa Bay, but I think it's too soon for this matchup. The Saints have too much continuity playing at home in week 1, which I already discussed. I think there's an advantage to being able to play at home in week 1 versus going on the road. You should never bet against Tom Brady, but I do think this time you'll be safe. I do think the next time these two teams meet will be much different, but Doc, the Saints, this is your team.
Yeah. Listen, Tyrod Taylor and Cleveland took them to the brink game 1, 2 seasons ago. Last year, Deshaun Watson torched them, and they still got away with it because of a brain-dead defensive coordinator that played off the ball in overtime. I'm going to tell you something. I am not sold. You cannot sell me. I don't care if he's the GOAT of all GOATs, that a team like this, whether wide receiver 1 and 2 are both healthy, that the first game out without live game anything, that things are going to fall into place. But I do think this. I think Levante David is a top 3 linebacker in the NFL. He's going to keep Alvin Kamara in check. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going against my Saints. They tend to crap the bed week 1. I am not happy with Sean Payton's coaching and his play calling in week 1. I think this could be an absolute track meet. I think we're talking about a 32-31 game. In the end, I'm going to picked the NFL headline for ESPN and all other top 10 websites. Brady sneaks one out in the end, 1-0, batting 100%. They're going to the Super Bowl. The Bucks are who we thought they were, and everybody's going to they want to prove, they want to say that. They want to say that, oh, this is going to completely change the culture. Let me tell you something. It takes a lot of miles to get an engine rolling. I like to see them start torching teams when they're playing crescendo wise, probably week 3 or 4, but I think they're good enough week 1. There are too many intangibles, but I will say this about overall the Saints. The Saints right now, if they're 2 or 3 rookies, play above normal like their rookies did last year, and they've drafted better than anybody in the NFL, hands down. Look at the stats at their rookies. Look at how they've mapped. They got a problem. There are so many of their rookies have turned out. They're in cap hell right now. But at every single position, they are simply the best equipped team in the National Football League, including the Chiefs. But I am not confident right now that they've got everything in order. It might take 2-3 weeks, but right now I think the Saints on paper are as good as any Saints team I've seen on paper, including their Super Bowl years, and they're being compared to 2009, 2010. But for week 1, I have no confidence in them. I'm taking the Bucks by 1.
Neil, what do you think about old man Breeze?
Yeah, I mean, I can hear Doc's picking against his team, but I have more well, I don't have that emotional attachment to the Saints, so I see them winning this game fairly comfortably. I'm really just waiting this whole season. I just wanted to see Brady get crushed at some point.
Oh, come on.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you, Marcus Davenport. Listen, Marcus Davenport put on 15 pounds of muscle, and they're waiting him. They bet the future on this guy. And they say he is in training camp. I've watched him. He's looked the best he ever has. I can see if Tom's got an Achilles heel, it's that offensive line. And I mean, Cam Jordan's Cam Jordan. He's a top 3 defensive end. But you got Davenport on the other side and a healthy interior rotation. Tom's hitting the ground. And if it's shoulder to chest and breaks the chicken wing, I will have a cocktail with you, brother.
I'm I know it's a sensitive subject for Saints fans, but I'm a big cut the head off the snake guy, and this would be the game I'd love to see it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna need
it's
you
too
not
early to knock
with
Tom
that
Brady
moron.
out. Come on,
Saints,
you want to take Brady out of this season?
Saints had 51, 52 sacks last year. They already rushed the quarterback well without any superstars, so I think they're going to dial up pressure.
I hope so.
But yeah.
James, there's a big injury question. Apparently.
Yeah, let's get the Saints out the way first. Cesar Ruiz, center, Marcus Davenport show up on the injury report, undisclosed injuries. For the Buccaneers, the big one here is Mike Evans is nursing a hamstring. Safety Andrew Adams also nursing a hamstring, and cornerbacks Ryan Smith and Parnell Motley show up on the injury report as well. So this is the thing here. Most of the wide receivers that I've discussed on the injury report thus far are all nursing hamstring injuries. This is
Not
also week 1. Right. Now, remember, this is week 1 in which there's no preseason.
Yeah.
And some of these teams that are playing in warm weather sites expect to see cramping be an issue during the games as well.
Amen.
James, should we be concerned? Because I think Mike Evans finished last season with a hamstring injury.
He did finish with a leg injury. I can't remember what it was, though. I thought it was his knees or a calf. But either way.
They got enough weapons without him. You know, they got more tight ends than the Eagle cheerleaders. So.
They do have a nice stack of tight ends.
Whoa. No jokes. No jokes. The final 4:00 game, and I'm pretty sure this is the one that Buck and Aikman are going to, which is mind-blowing to me. It's the Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers. Cardinals moved up 1 spot in our power rankings from 21 to 20. The Niners remain in the top 5, but drop from 4 to 5. Niners are favored by 7 in this game. Cardinals obviously did add DeAndre Hopkins, a real weapon for their young quarterback, Kyler Murray, and the 49er receivers are all banged up. That said, the Niners swept the Cardinals last season, and if they can avoid a Super Bowl hangover, I think they'll do it again. And I think the Cardinals will lose to the San Francisco 49ers this week. James, why don't we start with that injury report? Because I know the Niners wide receiving core is really banged up.
Yeah, and two of them show up on the injury report. Brandon Ayuk with a hamstring. There we go again. Deebo Samuel with the foot. Cornerback Jason Verrett with a hamstring. And guard Ben Garland missed with an ankle injury practice yesterday. On the Cardinal side, the only name showing up is tight end Max Williams with an undisclosed injury. So I know I picked the Niners in our pick sheet. I'm going to switch and go to Arizona because that second game last year between these two teams, this 49ers team did not look like it wanted to go to the playoffs. And maybe it was the wake-up call for them to steamroll the rest of the NFC into the Super Bowl. But if there was a game that pretty much exposed them for every flaw that they had and made Jimmy Garoppolo look pedestrian, pretty much I would say his worst game of the season, it was that second game against Arizona last season. On every phase of the game, every situation that you could screw up, they found a way to screw it up and yet somehow still won. This is a back-and-forth game that was very exciting to watch. And I think, week one, this is the best chance for Arizona to capitalize. Super Bowl hangover or not, I don't know. There's just something about this Niners team I just doesn't sit right with me going into this year.
Neil?
Well, May, are we going to be talking are you talking Super Bowl hangover for the 49ers, James, or what?
Yeah, I brought that up. Yeah. Niners have to avoid it.
Yeah, I think the Niners will win here. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Arizona, the quarterback's a smurf. He's eventually going to get smurfed.
Doc?
I'm really looking forward to this one. I want to see how Isaiah Simmons fits in the NFL. He's just a super athlete. We've seen these guys come in the NFL before, but with incredible talent, can play four positions. But I'm equally looking forward to what is it going to look like a full year with Kenyon Drake. Kyler Murray is a little bit of Houdini, but I think he changes a bit. I think Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella step up as wide receiver 2 and 3. I think DeAndre Hopkins obviously gives him another weapon. I think this offense is going to be what exciting the way that San Francisco had points last year was. I think it's going to be a little bit more like potentially Baltimore. I don't think there's enough talent on the back end there. I still think that even with the young one up front now, the Niners' defensive line still remains one of the best in the league. I think that the Niners win this thing by a field goal and strictly on their D. I have no hope at this point, or I don't see anything that would lead. I think there is a Super Bowl hangover. I think there's you've got an offensive genius there, but I still think that the talent without Deebo Samuel, who else is missing? Did I hear on the injury report? Anybody else from the wide receiver core?
Ayuk, their rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kid could be a stud, but again, he could be injured the entire season. These soft tissue injuries and Corona are going to change the whole path of the NFL year, but I think there's still enough talent there on the defensive line that they're going to keep them in check, and I think that they would not handily, but they win this game by a field goal.
All right, that does it for afternoon football. It's time to put on the bright lights of prime time. And Sunday Night Football features the Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Rams. Also failed to mention that with California burning down, I wonder if that 49ers game gets moved or something else. But I would assume the Rams in their brand new SoFi Stadium, which my son asked, "What's a SoFi?" I assume that they'll still be able to play that game because it's mostly indoors. The Cowboys moved up in our power rankings from 14 to 8. The Rams fell from 13 to 18. How did the Rams finish the season 13 in our power rankings last season? How is that? That can't be right. Anyway, Cowboys are favored by 3 in this game. They have won 4 of their past 5 versus the Rams, including a 44-21 drubbing last December. Dak Prescott aims for his 3rd in a row versus the Rams with 2+ touchdown passes and aims for his 3rd in a row on Sunday Night Football with a 100+ rating. I don't understand, other than the fact that the Cowboys are in your division, James and Neil, but the Cowboys are going to win this game. They should win it pretty easily.
Well, let's start by looking at the LA Rams. If the new playoff system that we have coming in this year was around last year, the Rams would have made the playoffs. They would have been the 7th seed in the NFC. I think the Rams have flown a little bit under the radar in this offseason. And 2 teams, I don't think. I think you can look at the Cowboys' offense and say, yeah, it looks pretty good. It looks like they'll put points on the board. But I'm not buying the Dallas Cowboys defense. And for that reason, I think this will be a bit of a shootout, and the Rams will edge it.
Yeah, I have to agree with Neil on this one. Cowboys defense, not sold. They tend to fail when they're needed most. We saw that down the stretch last year when they basically blew a 3-game division lead to my Eagles and basically hand-gifted us the championship. Injury report, Cowboys are Jordan Lewis, cornerback, Luke Gifford, linebacker, no one for the Rams. I'm more concerned and curious about this Rams defense because they keep stockpiling it with top-tier talent. I don't know if there are enough competent players around them to solidify this unit to make it formidable. I mean, they just gave Jalen Ramsey a big contract. They still have one of the best defensive linemen in the league, anchoring up front, Aaron Donald. But outside of them, I'm not saying it's a bunch of who's that, but there are not many players who live up to their expectations.
By the way, how do the Rams have the salary cap to do what they did with Jalen Ramsey? I mean, they were one of the teams that were in salary cap hell. Yep. And now all of a sudden they found an extra $1 billion. I
keep telling you guys, if you want to keep guys, salary cap means nothing. It's one of those overhyped nonsenses we have in the NFL.
I'd like to know who the real Jalen Ramsey is, though, because here's a guy who rolls up to Jacksonville in a Brinks truck and says, pay me, get shipped off to LA. And then I saw quite possibly the greatest thing I've ever seen on Hard Knocks of Jalen Ramsey talking to rookie wide receiver Van Jefferson saying, dude, you've got the speed and the talent. You got to make that slant quicker, and this is how you do it. I was blown away. 1, that I saw that on Hard Knocks, and 2, that it came from Jalen Ramsey. So which Jalen Ramsey is it? I don't know.
Well, when he shuts up and he plays football, he is, for me, the best cornerback in the league. But it's been too frequent in the last couple of years where he just hasn't been able to shut up, and he does the whole Brinks truck thing and everything. Just play the game because you're brilliant at it.
Yeah.
Doc, who you got?
Best quote I heard all year was something about Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald looks good in walkthroughs or something. Even Aaron Donald even looks good in walkthroughs or something. I think Aaron Donald is the best non-quarterback football player we have seen in 20 years. And he can change a game. He's got more pressures than anybody that overall in just about the history of football. And he's not always going to get the sack, but we know sacks are communist. You don't need to sack. You need to cut a second off the quarterback's ability to read. That's all you got to do to upset it. I see nothing except for more horses for Dak to throw to. It does not matter unless that offensive line, which was the greatest in the history of football, or number 2 to their old offensive line during the Aikman years, that have gone down to, maybe become a top 5, top 10. They've got to be a number 1 offensive line for Lamb and the rest of those studs, hamstrings and Achilles and everything else that's hurting to get them the ball. Right now, I don't care how much talent they've got on the offensive side. They do not have overall the defensive backfield horses to play with the top teams in the NFC. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say there's enough talent there. They squeak one out by 1 or 2 points. It will be within a field goal. Just because I think there's enough offensive talent there. I don't think there's enough offensive talent on the Rams right now. But I think they're going to have to show us something. I am so sick and tired of the gravy boat. I'm so sick and tired of the Cowboys this, the Cowboys that. You know what? Just go out and prove it. I don't care if you've got 45 Miss America NFL superstars playing for you. It does not matter. Show me, don't tell me, especially you, media. A little ironic. But it's a little ironic.
Oh, we don't slurp the Cowboys here. We really don't slurp the Cowboys.
No, yeah. So
as far as here, and then
yeah.
Kevin is slurping Tony Romo. So
No, yeah.
He's doing more
even
than
even if Amari Cooper's out, Michael Gallup's going to have 6 catches for 80 yards. You know, Mike, they've got so many backup studs. CeeDee Lamb, question mark. All first receivers of the second coming of Christ. Who cares? You know, let's see what they do. There's enough talent there. They'll pull it out. But I'm so sick and tired of talking about the Cowboys. Let's stop this.
all right, good. That brings us to Monday Night Football.
Well, just to back up what Doc said there, one of the key matchups in this game for me is going to be Aaron Donald over the new center for the Cowboys, Joe Looney. They lost Fredericks, of course, to retirement, and that's going to be a key thing in this game because I think you're right that Donald might eat.
Well, listen, Aaron can play zero technique. It does not matter what he plays. He is just so good. So he can change a game. And if they end up beating them by a touchdown because Aaron's got 4 pressures and 3 sacks, I won't be shocked. He's one single non-quarterback who can change a game. And that includes Khalil Mack too, you know.
By the end of this game, he could have marinated and grilled Joe Looney.
We'll have to create a grilled piece of meat after his name. If he gets more than three sacks on the guy, we'll all put our heads together and I'll come up with a top recipe and we'll publish it nationally with his name on it.
Monday Night Football, the Steelers and the Giants will kick things off at 7:15. We have 2 Monday Night Football games, an opening kickoff weekend. The Steelers moved up from 17 to 11 in our power rankings. The Giants stayed at 28. Steelers are favored by 6. Before I tell you anything, we have a very special treat. Our crazy Giant superfan Jared has written a late preview here. Generally, the start of every season, we see defenses struggle for the first few weeks as offenses just unload on them. Unfortunately, this is a potential top 5 defense of the Steelers who have multiple all-pros, except DJ and even Saquon. I think he meant expect. Expect DJ and even Saquon to struggle a bit week 1. Saquon will easily be the best player on the field, no question, but he still has to run through a lot of Steelers to get the job done. Expect Barkley to be held to around 80 yards and 1 touchdown. DJ will struggle with the pass rushers of the Steelers. He will have 280 yards in the air, which, by the way, in this day and age of the NFL is not necessarily struggling, but fumble it once. The Giants wideouts will look better than expected, but not sufficient enough to win the game. Giants defense will blanket Juju and stuff Connor, but expect their number 2 and number 3 threats like Washington have very good yards. Steelers win this week matchup as Big Ben gives Pitt hope to not be a total disaster again. Steelers 27, Giants 20. Greg responded. I approve of this preview. Oh, and TJ Watt will end Barkley's career. Welcome to 2020. And this went on. Jared responded back, keep dreaming. Barkley going to break his knees. Barkley has embarrassed much better players than Watt. Greg reminds him that is defensive player of the year, TJ Watt. I love Barkley, but his future is doomed. Yes, there's nothing. These guys should get together and do a superfan battle. You would think that would be something that they should have done.
The one thing you mentioned there is about the Giants blanketing a defense. They haven't blanketed a defense since what, 2008?
Is that even true? I don't even think that's true.
That's when they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
How dare you? Last time these two teams played was in 2016. Steelers struggled without Big Ben last season, but the defense was stout with a +8 take giveaway ratio, including a league-leading 38 takeaways. I don't see them having any trouble at all with the Giants.
We've just talked about the Dallas Cowboys defense being pretty porous, especially in the defensive backfield. This Giants defense could be the worst we've seen for years. They are terrible.
But they got Landon Collins, right? Didn't they?
No, we stole their star player. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Who is the starting? You know what? Now I have to go to our lads and look up the depth chart on the Giants. In the meantime, give me an injury report.
Certainly. Starting with the Giants, we got Golden Tate with a lower body injury. That's all it says here. Blake Martinez,
lower
linebacker.
body injury? Is that really a new designation? I like it.
Hey, they like to get away with not being specific.
How low is it? You know?
Blake Martinez is nursing a foot injury. For the Steelers, this injury report is only as recent as August 28th. So bear with me. There's nothing more recent than this that I could find. But these are just the names that show up on it. David DeCastro, the guard. Derek Watt, fullback. Running back Anthony McFarland. Center Marquise Pouncey. Defensive tackle Chris Wormley. Linebacker Robert Spillane. And defensive end Stephon Tuitt, along with safety Terrell Edmonds.
By the way, I'm looking at the depth chart of the Giants defense, and I think you're right, Neil. By the way, their leading pass interception, as listed on NFL.com, was a guy they added late in free agency, Logan Ryan, who had 4 last season and was not with the Giants.
Hmm.
Yeah, this defense is pretty terrible, Doc.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a track meet.
Really?
I listen, I think there's too much talent. I think that there's enough weapons overall. If the line plays average for the Giants, I think there's enough talent there. They're going to put up the points. They're going to be playing from behind all game, but I think they keep it within a touchdown. I see like a 35-28 game. I still think it's an anomaly because I think that pound for pound, the Steelers have got studs at just about all the main positions on D. They are a top 5 defense. And I think Juju Smith-Schuster and some of those horses are going to want to get in bed with Ben early in the season. They had an off year last year because they had nobody to throw the ball. But I think that if Ben stays upright, I think that he gets that whole, no pun intended, Juju back into that offense. James Conner, everybody, and there's enough offense on early in the season here that nobody's going to be able to stay with them. That's under 500 as a team. I think there's enough there. I think Ben's arm, apparently, I don't know if you guys heard, but his arm feels better than it's ever felt. I mean, when you get that operation, it tightens things up, you know. He's talked to a lot of Major League Baseball players, and I think he comes out firing. Juju had a way off year. I think he gets back on the saddle first game of the year, and it's just too much to stay. You're right. There's nothing on defense in New York, and it will be a punchline by week 3. So,
our final game of week 1. By the way, I blame Neil talking about recipes with you, Doc, for this show going so long.
Well, let's face it has been the best part of the show.
The Tennessee Titans are at the Denver Broncos. The Titans fall from 12 to 15 in our power rankings, which I don't understand. And the Broncos move up from 23 to 19, which I also don't understand. Vegas favors the Titans by 2.5 points in this game. Before I tell you what I think, let me tell you what Jordan, our Titan superfan, believes is going to happen this week. This game was a lot more worrisome a few days ago. I viewed Denver as an underrated team with potential to have one of the top defenses in the league after adding A.J. Boye and Jarrell Casey. I thought this game would be an absolute grind and super low scoring. However, now Von Miller will be out, and there's a question whether they'll have Bradley Chubb. Oh, and we have Clowney. Still, I don't take the Broncos lightly with what must be the best fanless home field advantage there is. There are something like 19-1 at home in September over the last 10 years, which is absolutely insane. The altitude is a very real factor, and I worry how we'll deal with it, especially no preseason games. Plus, it's a serious revenge game for Jarrell Casey. Bless his heart. He stuck with us for all of our bad years. He was an absolute beast who never got the recognition because he played for such a bad team for so long. And when we finally got good, we trade him away. I feel bad for him. He's angry, and he has every right to be, though it was a smart move for us to let us get clowny. Anyway, I do think this offseason disadvantages the Broncos, who rely on a second-year quarterback and a couple of rookie wide receivers, along with the new offensive coordinator. It'll take time for them to gel. The opposite can be said for the Titans offense, where every single starter and coach this year was on our team last year. Right tackle Dennis Kelly was Conklin's backup, and Kelly played a lot. So I'm wary of the altitude, but aside from that, I think we're a better team and more prepared team. I still expect it to be low scoring. I've not forgotten the 16-0 beatdown they gave us last year in Mariota's last start, a game I called the worst I've ever seen. It will still be a tough game. X Factor punter Brett Kern, best punter in the league. We're talking kickers. We got to the last game, and we end up talking kickers.
You know what's going to happen sooner or later.
Blah, 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 blah. Prediction, Titans 17, Broncos 9.
Was that an X Factor you said? X Factor?
X Factor, yeah.
X Factor. All right.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you the Broncos may have the upper hand historically versus the Titans, including that shutout victory he mentioned from October last season. But they did, in fact, lose their sack leader, Von Miller, for the season. And which quarterback is more for real this coming season? Because that's the narrative I'm hearing. Is Drew Lock the real quarterback? Was Ryan Tannehill a real quarterback? Well, let me tell you. Drew Lock had an 89.7 rating in 5 games last season. Ryan Tannehill in 10 games led the NFL with a 117.5 rating last season, which is the 4th highest single season rating among qualified passers in NFL history. So you want to know which quarterback is more real? I'm going to tell you it's Ryan Tannehill. And I don't know why people are questioning that other than they've seen his previous tape in Miami. However, we've talked about that. There's a certain coach in New York who used to be in Miami. That perhaps was the reason for holding Ryan Tannehill back. Titans are underranked by our superfans, but I have to agree they do have a tendency to play down to the level of their opponent instead of playing at what they should be playing at, and that is a Super Bowl contending team. So I'm taking the Titans, and I don't get the love for the Denver Broncos. Doc, Neil had to go, so I'm going to throw it to you first.
No, I agree with you, bud. I keep hearing, I keep hearing from so many media circles about, wow, he finished great. Quality wins. What quality wins did they have? They beat the Raiders at the end of the year. They beat the Lions. They got torched by the Chiefs. They beat the Texans. Questionable quality. They beat the Chargers. Right? There's nothing there. Tannehill is a complete anomaly. And hats off to him. Right? I mean, people, just like the working world, you go to a corporation or you go to a company, sometimes you're a different team in minor league sports. You perform differently under head coaches and different systems. You're a better restaurant manager at Applebee's than you are McDonald's. I'm giving you a bad parallel here, but you get the point. Good for him. Tannehill, until he shows me otherwise, he's playing as a top 10 quarterback. He's playing efficient ball. And with the rising stars on that team, the studs they've got, I think they've got a great head coach. I think they completely outclass the Denver Broncos. And whether the mountain air affects them or not, I think this is a 10 to 14 point win for Tennessee.
Yeah, James, I could have locked this one up too.
Yeah, you could have, especially with the injury report. And I'm going to start with Tennessee first, but linebacker Derek Robinson, guard Nate Davis, and wide receiver A.J. Browns are listed for the Titans. For the Broncos, we mentioned Von Miller. He's going to be out for the year. Bradley Chubb is questionable. How much he plays, we don't know. He has a knee injury. It says he's going to be limited in that Monday night game. So it's a volume thing as far as how much he's going to be on the field. Also showing up, Mark Barron, who they just acquired, linebacker, is on the injury report, along with Melvin Gordon and wide receiver KJ Hamler. Two, probably the best tandem of pass rushers in the league on paper in Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, and they're basically not going to be out there. This is a game that, and not to say that Denver won't generate some pass rush. I mean, they're going to blitz and do some creative things, but Tannehill has to show that in this game, pretty much out the gate, that last year wasn't a fluke. And that's just my perception, because while he did play well last year, he played well within a system that he was thrown into midway through the season due to his late acquisition in the offseason last year. But I'm still not sold on him. Yes, the coach previously in Miami is a dunce, walking and breathing at the same time. We don't know how. But, I mean, new system is a good change. If he pulls it off again this year, I will be the first to congratulate and pat him on the back and say he's the real deal. But until then, they have to repeat last year's success for an entire season, not just the last 10 or so games down the stretch.
I mean, AJ Bouye might be an upgrade to Chris Harris. I don't necessarily think so. He's a little bit older, and he didn't exactly have a great season in Jacksonville last year. I'm just, I don't see it in Denver. I don't get the sneaky, playoff hopes for the Denver Broncos. I also don't get what they did at running back. There was no problem with Phillip Lindsay. Why they've now paired him up with Melvin Gordon. Only one guy can carry the rock at a time. Yeah. I've never seen two guys carry a rock in tandem. So I mean, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem for them. And they're relying heavily on a rookie wide receiver. And that's your next problem. Rookies can be great, but the likelihood that they are great right out of the gate, very low. So I don't see it in Denver.
Agreed.
Yeah. Gentlemen, there's no more games to talk about. I mean, we could start talking about week 2 if we really wanted to, but we should probably call it a show here. Doc, thanks so much for joining us. Again, Homegating, the Tailgate Homegate radio show. Looking forward to everything you got going on there. Looking forward to some great recipes. I know it seems like it was yesterday that you talked about a maple infused pork. It's coming back to me now, though. I
want that recipe.
No problem. Let me just say this, Pod. I'll tell you this. I was unprepared to talk football with you today. I got so much going on, but it's like therapy. And I want to say in somewhat of a sermon, little paragraph here, that I heard Sal Palantonio this morning on a political show talking about what the TV productions are going to look like this weekend. And it reminds me that what we've been through, this pandemic has been a behavioral scientist's dream, right? This chaos, this political chaos, this racial chaos, with everything going on. We get our church back on the weekend starting tonight. And I am very grateful to be alive, to be giddy as a schoolgirl, to just watch two teams I don't give two craps about tonight other than general interest and my fantasy teams, and break some bread with the people I love around the greatest sport in the world. With all that's going on, 40,000 corona tests and one positive, right? In the last 3 to 4 weeks for the NFL, for them to do what they've done. But here's the deal, guys. They're now getting outside the bubble. They're traveling. Mm-hmm. They're going to opposing hotels. This thing could get off the rails really quick. But if they do their due diligence, I am very thankful to have the game that I love back, to add an ounce of normality to what has been a chaotic year in all of our lives. If we don't have this normality of fall football, get out the 1-800 suicide prevention numbers and put them on a sticky beside your desk. Cause I was on Sirius XM 10 years ago when we waxed poetically weekly about the collective bargaining unit and mediation and the anti-competitive benefits of the Sherman Act and the Harvard School and the Moody School of Business. And I got so sick and tired of it. I asked my buddy Pat Kerwin from NFL Radio. I said, Pat, like a puppy, are we going to have football this year? And it's like, I'm ever since then, I don't care what's in front of us. If we have the Gridiron and we have the National Football League, it just adds an ounce of normality to everything we are doing. Pod, and we've talked about that. And I'm thankful to not only talk recipes and get back to normality or watch football, but to talk football with junkies like you. And I'm appreciative, not just for the weekend, but for you guys to have this opportunity.
Doc, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Like I said, if when you send me those recipes, we will post them on our Facebook page, facebook.com/NFU podcast. You can email Doc. Doc, what was that email address again?
parkinglotpro@gmail.com.
And he'll gladly send you those recipes. Neil clearly found something on the web, so you can look up.
He's probably got onto the old website. The new website you can go to, it's just being built right now, called Tailgate Homegate Nation. It's in its infancy. We're just loading the homegating stuff up because everything, as I said, it's in its infancy. But again, whatever you need for game day, if you're looking for new ideas, new marinations, new spices, I got products that are going to be going up, just funky stuff. You like craft beer, we got the greatest craft beer invention for your deck ever. I'm going to be announcing that too. But there's anything you want to know about game day outside of X's and O's and Fire Zone Blitzes, I'll give it to you and make that email available. So
awesome. You can email us, nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast. Remember, you want to follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode, because we'll be here every Thursday, but there might be some shows in between Thursdays that get thrown in there from time to time. If we run onto a topic that we think is super interesting, if I get a special guest, what have you, we're going to be there for you all season long. And James and I are still talking about a special show that we might do on Tuesdays, but my wife is already yelling at me about it because I told her stupidly, never tell your wife about shows that you're planning.
No. Tell your wife everything. And this is not the case where it's better to seek forgiveness than permission. No, you want permission. Trust me. You want permission up front.
I want to do another show. What's wrong with that?
I know you want to do another show. I want your wife to not kill you.
Queen Padme, we love you. All right. For Doc, for James, for Neil, for all the super fans, for all of you out there, happy NFL kickoff. We will talk to you again next week. And for now, here's our new guy at the end of the show, Kofi Annan, RIP. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together. And through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.